what's up? It's your girl, Iberia, and welcome to another episode of Believers After Dark on Saved in the City TV. Welcome. Oh my God. Y'all, it's already Thursday. It's already 10 p.m. Why are we up? Oh, right. Because we have an amazing topic to talk about that will probably prove controversial for some, and unfortunately a lot of times it's just because people are uncomfortable talking about topics that are real, that touch home. And so today's topic of discussion is perps in the church. I remember when I was talking to JoLanda, wow, and you was like, perps in the church, but no, that I don't even know why that came up at all. But what I love about this particular podcast is that I don't have to do it alone. And so I'm so excited to have JoLanda back with us again, Talk Consulting, kind of our resident consultant here at Believers After Dark. And today we're joined by a good friend of mine that we go way back to Howard University, Dr. Joel Peterson. How y'all feeling on tonight?
Wonderful. Wonderful.
You good, Joel? You hanging in there?
I'm great. Yeah.
So glad
to this conversation.
Yeah, absolutely. So glad that that you guys can be a part. So just in case, I've actually had a couple people when I was talking about perps in the church that they were, what's a perp? You know, what does that mean? And then why are you putting it in the same sentence as the church? Well, for various reasons. So perp is short for perpetrator. And unfortunately, it's real. And there are a lot of people who experience abuse or they're taken advantage of, not just in the church, but, you know, in various communities, you know, in vulnerable populations. And so, you know, hopefully by the end of the show, you'll be able to identify signs of being taken advantage of, and or even figure out how you can begin your process of healing. And so the synopsis of today's show is, you know, the church in itself is thought to be a place of safety and refuge, a place where the broken and vulnerable, kind of like I said earlier, can come and be healed and taught the straight and narrow path. But for some, it has been a place for innocence lost, broken trust, and abuse. And I mean, even just reading that, I can feel that. The Believers After Dark cast, that's us. We'll discuss perpetrators in the church, victims of religious abuse, wow, and how to identify the signs of an unhealthy spiritual leader. Wow, that's heavy. Y'all ready? I mean, it's very heavy. But before we jump directly into the topic at hand, Joel, let's start with you. For those people who are just joining and don't know exactly who you are, why don't you tell them kind of what you do in the community, how you're connected?
Sure. So as Brandy said earlier, that we go way back all the way to 1998.
Dang. For real?
Yeah.
Dang, we've been out of college that long.
Yeah,
so that would be freshman year.
Yep.
Yikes.
Absolutely.
Welcome.
So we go back. We have a great relationship, and so much has transpired. City on a Hill.
Oh, stop it. Wow.
All this other stuff that we have done.
Yeah.
But my name is Joel Peterson.
Mm-hmm.
I am the executive director of Playworks Wisconsin. And I'm also a teaching pastor at Praise Temple International Church. But the thing that I'm probably the most excited about is I am a husband. Yay. And I am a father of 4.
Yes, and father of 4. Yes, and he was like, oh, I gotta say, I thought you was like, and I say my son's names. Right. Okay, Josiah, John, I know your children too.
Yeah.
And JoLanda, I always want to say Dr. JoLanda.
Well, speak it into existence.
That felt right.
It's coming. Yes. If you've been keeping up with Believers After Dark, you guys know I'm JoLanda Rogers, founder and owner of Talk Consulting, and I have the amazing privilege to sit with Save in the City as their resident counselor, and just kind of share some insight on what's really going on.
Yeah, I think our last episode we had like a full counseling session. Ooh, and Unforgivable. Yeah, it was very good. Mm-hmm. And again, I mean, really, it just, you know, as a reminder, these are just our opinions and our thoughts, and Absolutely. There's no way that we can get really to the core of anything in 30 minutes. Yeah. Especially a lot of the topics that we're talking about. And so before we jump into perps in the church, you got your stone.
Wait, got my stone.
You got your stone. We all know every time we come on Believers After Dark, we have to remind ourselves that, you know, he without sin cast the first stone, and we all have sinned and come short of the glory. And I say that just because some of the topics and issues that we talk about, we're going to have different opinions and different thoughts. And when you walk away, you know, sometimes you have to come to a place where we just agree to disagree, and we want to take the judgment glasses off and just deal with real conversation with real people and see if we can get to the solution, at least for today. So wow, Perps in the church, how does that, I mean, just the title in itself, how you feel? Like, it's a lot, even just from the synopsis that I read about abuse and all of that.
Yeah, I think it's something that's very real, something that we have swept under the rug for years. Something that has been,
I feel like forever.
But not only in the church, just in our community, period.
Yeah.
Right. Well, that's good.
We all know the uncle that's at the cookout that you're asking, hey, where's Uncle Joe at?
Mm-hmm.
We all have these things that we've just kind of overlooked because it's been in our culture to overlook them.
Yeah.
But especially in the church.
What happened? Yeah, and I was gonna say what happens in the family stays in the family.
Right.
That's been kind of a perpetuated concept. You know?
Absolutely, but in the church especially, I think we have a big issue with not naming things what they are, right? And so you'll have a pastor who has an affair with a person in the congregation. That's not an affair.
What?
That's abuse.
Wow.
Absolutely.
And so as a licensed counselor, I have to take an oath. I have to take an oath not to sleep with any of my clients, right?
Interesting.
I have to, as a doctor, has to take an oath not to sleep with any of their clients. In all of these fields, there are oaths that are taken that you cannot abuse this power. And so the person, we like to say, oh, he just had an affair. Oh, he messed up a little bit. And all those things are true, but we got to call it what it is. And what it is it's abuse. Wow. It's spiritual abuse.
Wow. I mean, that's mind blowing. And I think what's so, I think, even more mind blowing is that, like you said, I mean, this has been going on not just for you. It seems like forever, you know. And so, but when do we stop sweeping it under the rug? When it happens to your child? But I guess, honestly, if I can be super transparent, I remember, you know, being a member of a church, just over the course of my life, and there were things that we knew was going on with a particular pastor, and no one said anything about it.
Right.
Like, what? When do we start holding people sacred and not the word of God or God in itself or the heart of the abused? You know, why isn't that the thing that we're more concerned about? You know, where's the I was gonna say, where's the love?
Where's the love?
Yes. So talk consulting, because the sister.
Yeah. So I'm just listening.
It's a lot. I know it's a lot.
What Dr. Peterson said is so impactful. My husband and I, like, we have a lot of friendships, and those that are really close to us, like, we'll say bruh and sis. So we call each other brother and sister, and we do that because the understanding is that you don't sleep with your brothers, you don't sleep with your sisters. Yeah. Same thing in a church. You know, when there is that setup of you're my spiritual father or you're my spiritual mother. Fathers don't sleep with daughters. Mothers don't sleep with sons. You know,
right. When you think of when you can think of it that way,
think of it in that concept.
Yeah,
and so that goes right along with what you're saying, that it's abuse and that you're a perpetrator. And I think part of the reason we sweep it under the rug, because dealing with the reality of what's happening is painful, and culturally, we don't like to address pain.
Absolutely.
Yeah, no, absolutely not.
We are taught as a culture to get by things. We're not taught to deal with it. Yeah, we're taught to move past it. I would have loved to hear the podcast on forgiveness, because that's what we're talking about, right? Where people are taught to get past an issue and not deal with the fullness of the issue. And when you look at everything that Jesus did in the Bible, not only did he forgive people, but he also restored people,
absolutely,
right? And so we don't deal with the restoration. Yeah. The other thing, if I may,
yes, please.
say, is that I think too much emphasis is put on a particular individual, right?
What do you mean? Like, the leader?
The leader,
okay.
right? Too much emphasis is put on the leader as saying that person is a bad person, right? But as we've seen throughout history, pastor after pastor after pastor after pastor has done this. So when it becomes pastor after pastor after pastor, it's a systematic problem. It's not an individual who made bad choices.
You mean pastor after pastor that is abusing, or
Sure.
yeah, and not all pastors, but in this particular,
no, absolutely not.
Yes,
absolutely
okay.
not. But in this particular thing, it's a systematic thing.
Yeah, no,
so
I get that.
when you do your history of the black church, and I'm talking about the black church right now, right?
Yeah.
This happens in other churches, of course, as we know, with the Catholics and everything else.
Honey.
But I'm talking about right now the black church.
Yeah.
When you go back to the 30s and 40s, we couldn't read, right? We couldn't read, and so
in the 30s and the 40s we couldn't read. Child,
Most couldn't.
Couldn't.
I guess
No,
not.
not at all.
And so, even with my mother was born in Alabama. The preacher only came around once a month
Oh, okay.
because he had to go to the other churches in the month. That's how we got the having communion once a month.
Ah, teach us on today,
Because the preacher would have to go because he was the only learned individual.
Gotcha. No,
in
yeah,
the community,
no, that's clear.
right? So he couldn't go and say, "Hey, everybody, turn to John 3:16."
Yeah.
Right.
And not everybody's going to be able to open it up
Yeah.
and read,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
So
yeah.
we have a culture where we put all of our trust in a person.
Yes, that is wow.
So that's been bred throughout generations that, whatever pastor say, go. I can't go back and check it. I can't go back and read what is he talking about. So we have this thing that's been passed on, and unfortunately, we're still there.
No, I agree.
Unfortunately, we're still there, and we're still in this systematic thing where we exalt this pastor as whatever he says goes. And when you idolize a person, he becomes a rock star. He becomes he becomes that individual that everyone is like, oh,
Yeah. Yeah.
right. The other piece that I think you said in your introduction is when we have churches and people trying to get it right. We have a lot. I do not want to get up here and say all churches are evil.
Oh, of course
all
not.
churches
Right.
are,
No,
whatever.
definitely not about that.
Everyone is. I'm not trying to say that at all. But what I am saying is we have a unhealthy relationship with the church.
We do.
And
we've had it for
and we've
a
had
long
it
time.
for a very long time.
Yes.
And if we it has to go back to us. So that we got perps in the church, right?
Yeah.
But we also got perps in the pews.
This is true. Wow.
All right? So you got perps in the pulpit, perps in the pews. All right? I kind of like that.
Yeah.
I kind of feel a little bit.
I saw you feeling yourself.
Song,
Yeah.
like we did the
I
other
saw,
one.
Yeah.
but I didn't
Yeah.
want to go
Okay.
back because
Okay.
when
We
pumps,
won't.
I just
I'm
imagine
sorry.
MC Hammer
So
in a Speedo,
inappropriate.
and it was just not appropriate.
Yeah. So when you have that relationship going on, and you have this idolization of a specific person, and you don't have these things in order, then you set yourself up for this type of relationship.
Wow.
You set yourself up systematically for someone to be taken advantage of because you now idolize a person instead of Christ.
No, you're spot on. And what I think is really interesting too is that so you mentioned something a little bit earlier in your when you were making your point, you were saying pastor after pastor after pastor, and I think the reason why these, well, not calling the pastors the perps, but certain perps are not caught, is because they are not reported in the same way you will report other abuse. And so I was reading this and I thought it was really interesting to me, and it just said diagnosing the scope of the problem isn't easy because there's no hard data.
Right.
And I think that's where the issue is. So the most commonly referenced study shows how difficult it is to find accurate statistics. So all the way back in 2007, the three largest insurers of churches and Christian nonprofits said that they received about 260 claims of sexual abuse against a minor each year. And that was 260 claims that were actually, like, who's really doing the paperwork?
Right.
And I guarantee, I hate to say I guarantee, but I'm pretty sure this is probably not a black church where these were, reported. Yeah, so how you feeling? You taking it in?
I'm digesting and I'm taking it all in, because something powerful that he mentioned is that perps are in the pulpit, and then perps are also in the pews.
Come on in here.
And see, if we don't want to address what's in the pulpit, there's no way we will address what's in the pews.
Yeah.
Because in order for us to address that, then there means that there has to be transformation all the way up the line. And I appreciated just how you talk about that it's not really an issue of, condemnation, but it's an issue of healing, and how our history has taught us to place our leaders in positions, and then also not only that, those positions are held so highly. Like if I can't make it in corporate America, I can make it in a church,
and
so it becomes life, and then to a point where people become untouchable, and they're not
right. So I invest, right, and I'm not ever going to invest in a company that doesn't have a strong board. I'm never going to invest in a company that doesn't have strong stopgaps, because I don't want my money to go down the tube because of a bad decision.
Absolutely.
Right? Now, church is not an investment, but it is. It's a place where you put your money for a spiritual investment.
True.
When you look at the church's board, is it made up of his friends?
Most times.
When you look at the church's infrastructure, is it made up of his people?
Absolutely.
And if that's the case, this is why it's able to perpetuate, because
no checks and balances.
No checks and balances.
No checks and balances.
I'm not investing my money in a company that doesn't have checks and balances. I'm not doing it. And I hate to make the correlation between that and the church, but we do give our money to church.
We do.
Right?
We do.
And so I think it's very important that we look for the signs of a healthy leader, right? And the main sign of a healthy leader is if that leader was to leave, could that church survive?
Absolutely. That part right there. Yeah.
And so if the church would close, if he left, or thousands of members would leave if that person, he or she left, that's not a healthy church.
No,
when you look at Apple, when you look at all of these other companies, when their CEOs die or whatever,
they keep going.
Ain't nobody walking away.
Nope.
No.
Because there's checks and balances and systems in place to keep going, because what matters is what everybody's dealing with, right?
Absolutely.
And so as the church, we're supposed to be uplifting the name of Christ, not uplifting a person.
Yeah.
Therefore, the first thing that I think a person should look for when they're looking for a church is too much dependent on that pastor, because if
and their family,
because if something is brought up, like that pastor, whatever the case is, right?
Yeah.
First of all, your board made up of your homies. They're not about to do. They're not about to do anything, right?
Yes, man.
Absolutely. And then the second thing is when the issues are brought up, if too much of the church is dependent upon that person, if they let you go, the church closes.
Absolutely.
True.
Absolutely. Can I tell you something that blew my mind?
Yeah.
Though?
Can you tell them when we come back from this break?
I sure can.
Okay.
I sure can.
I was really thinking about it, so do not lose that thought. And then I do want to touch on groupies in the church. Because are the groupies in the church equivalent to the Perps in the pews? Or no, I'm not sure. Anyhow, wow, how are you guys feeling? I like to ask the video audience, are y'all okay? Are you thinking about this? Have you had a situation where you were, is it perpetrated, or you were abused, where you were violated? Thank you, that's the word I'm looking for. And we kind of laugh and joke here and there, on the show, but these issues and these matters are real. And so we're going to take a quick break, but we'll be right back. And JoLanda has a question for Dr. Peterson over here. We'll be right back after this.
Absolutely.
What happens in our house stays in our house.
But what do you do when trauma happens in the house?
This is an invitation to finally talk. Tell your story, accept your truth, learn your identity, and know your strength. Talk presents a pocket message series offering resources to process, heal, and provide support for survivors. The series provides heart-stirring commentary on the reality of childhood sexual abuse, with insight from Dr. Ramona Woods, Dr. Mark Ongley, Author Victoria McAfee, Sarah Reek, LPC, and Austin Reese of Lotus Legal. This series includes 3 messages that can be purchased for $10 each, or the 3-part series for $25. Purchase the series and schedule a talk presentation for your school, daycare, church, or organization today at talkconsulting.net.
And we are back with Believers After Dark, and I'm so excited again to be sitting here with Dr. Joel Peterson and JoLanda Rogers. We're talking about a not so comfortable topic. We're calling it Perps in the Church, and although it's kind of a funny, kind of trendy name, there's really nothing funny about the topic of abuse or the topic of being taken advantage of or what have you. And so we've been talking about from spiritual leaders to even people in your community. And before we go, we definitely want to make sure we're able to help you identify when you might be taken advantage of, or you might be a part of a vulnerable population, and you need to be aware of your surroundings. So, JoLanda, before we went to break, you were about to ask Dr. Peterson something, and
yeah, it was like
I
a
interrupted.
Share ask. It was like a share and a ask.
Okay, go.
Like a share and ask.
Okay.
Ask, share.
Ask, share.
So,
share,
yeah,
ask.
Share, ask.
I don't know.
Okay.
Every time I say that, I feel like I'm about to cuss, so I don't want to say
that. All right. So last month, right?
Yes.
Last month was April.
Yes.
And it was Sexual Assault Awareness and Child Abuse Prevention Month, right? So Talk Consulting released a series of books, a trilogy on childhood sexual abuse. It was one addressed to perpetrators, one addressed to the responders, one addressed to the survivors, and then a children's book. What bothered me, and I'm just interested to hear your feedback on it, is that the books were more well received in the community than they were in the church. And I actually had someone tell me, I'm not trying to create problems that we don't have. And that, it happened.
Wait.
It happened.
Problems they don't have where? In the church?
Yeah. That thought alone said to me, you already have a problem.
Huge.
That you're just not willing to identify. So I'm wondering, like, your thoughts toward that, and then also the concept of healthy leadership. If your leader is afraid to address the truth and the realities about sin and brokenness, because that's really what it is.
Yeah, that's the root.
That's a deep, deep issue. So what say ye?
What say ye?
I have to be biblical.
You went King James on that one.
The Message version.
Right.
What's up?
So it is so touchy, and there's so much church bashing that goes on.
Yeah,
already
you have to be careful, right?
That people are tired of it. That are inside the church, right? Especially people who aren't doing the things that people are being accused of.
Yeah.
So when people talk about the church, they paint it with a broad brush, right? And they say these things are happening in the church. These things are happening in some churches, right? They're not happening in all churches. And so I think that's one of the reasons why you're getting the pushback, because people are just like, they're exhausted. Second thing is back to what we originally talked about. We've been taught to sweep this under the rug for decades.
Ever.
Decades. And we don't even address it.
Or if we do address it, we don't address it. Right. You know what I mean? Like, it's acknowledged and this shouldn't happen. But just like we don't address so many other topics and issues that are really at the core of why families are broken and why people are stepping out of their marriages and why this,
hurt people. It's
cliche, but it's real.
Yeah. Hurt people.
True
right?
story.
And so when you have someone,
we have broken people in leadership.
100%, right? But the truth of the matter is that's the way God designed it, right? God wanted broken leaders, right?
Wow.
But
weakness, strong. Way strong. Blah blah blah. Yeah.
So, however, if we are not addressing the trauma that is involved with that, then we have issues, right? So, personal story. I was violated in the church.
What? I don't know this.
Yeah. So, and we're talking years when I was a kid.
Wow.
Right?
Wow.
Not by another man.
Yeah.
By another woman.
Oh, and I've
okay.
No, I've heard that a few times.
So, and when I go to the gym.
That's interesting.
When I go to the gym and when I go to and I have different conversations with men and it's enclosed, that same story goes over.
Is it celebrated? You know, in a way. Go ahead.
So that was my point. I didn't even know it was abuse. I thought I was cool.
Yep.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
I thought I was cool until I had my son at 20. Right? It wasn't until then.
Sorry.
It wasn't until then where I was like, wait, whoa.
Yeah.
Hold on.
Yeah.
This ain't right. So I think
I had just a quick listen because you said it's just like blowing my mind because I know of a young man that was and he doesn't even see it as abuse, but it was abuse.
Sure.
He was maybe 18, or 17 or 18,
sure,
and was sleeping with the first lady and the daughter.
Sure.
And on a couple occasions at the same time.
Yeah.
Okay. So it was a real thing.
I'm sorry.
Yes, ma'am.
Simultaneously?
Yes.
Okay.
Menage a trois.
As you were.
And then the first lady is getting back up, taking her role on the stage. The women are praising her, for her beautiful hat and who she, and we go through the motions of this parade, and so it's like, again, for the boys, a lot of the boys that I know that have been abused in the church, it's kind of almost a stamp of, dang, you doing that?
Right.
And for the women, it's, you're just, shh.
What did you do to make that happen?
What did you do to make that happen?
What did you do to cause that? And so
Jezebel, and there you get these labels, temple whore
this in there, right?
Yeah.
And then we start all of this movement around damage control against the person that has been violated to make sure that we don't lose the ministry or lose what we've built.
Yeah.
Right.
And then we never go back to address the issue.
Right.
And
all in the name of Jesus.
All in
to keep we're gonna keep the church. Yeah.
I ain't gonna say it's the name of Jesus.
No, it's not. But I'm saying that's what they would say.
But I need to say this for you as a survivor.
Sure.
To a survivor.
Sure.
And that reality of finally understanding, and when it's unlocked, that wait a minute, I was abused.
Right.
Right. Because one,
you just blew my mind
we
with
don't
that
have a
first
lot of conversations explaining what abuse is.
Absolutely.
So then counselor to counselor, I'll share if there's a 5 years or more age difference between children, that is sexual abuse.
Right.
Even if the age difference is not there, if there's an emotional or psychological maturity between the children in the church, that is sexual abuse. Furthermore, male, female, male on male, female on female, that is abuse. Yes, little boys can be molested. They can be abused. And some ways we see that behavior played out when they grow up is that they try to absolve themselves of what has happened to them, either through promiscuity or through same-sex attraction or through just a host of other things that's nothing but brokenness.
Sure.
So I mentioned the book that was written to perpetrators, right?
Okay.
Not from a sense of condemnation at all. And we talk about perps in the church, just a willingness to address the issue. So there's a chapter that talks about what is the need under the need.
Right. Right.
What is the need?
What is the need under the need? So what's really happening inside of the perpetrator and being able to address that.
Right.
And then there's an analogy of how we put food in a microwave. And we know it's not going to taste as good.
Oh, true.
But just that notion toward that instant gratification and the chemicals that begin to change in the brain as we're waiting on that food to get done.
Yes.
That's the same thing that happens with a perpetrator. And for many of them, they cannot take a step back until they hear that ding and that microwave goes off and that behavior has already been completed.
Sure.
And as a body, as leadership, if we don't address the issue and say, hey, tell me what's really going on. I know what you're acting out.
Right.
Wow.
But what is that need for control?
Right.
Where was your control stolen?
Right.
Oh my God, y'all.
Yeah. And again, going back to the board.
Right. His boys.
That board, though.
Yeah. What?
That board, though.
What have y'all been looking at? Right. Because there are things of an unhealthy leader, right? That's been studied. We know what a healthy leader is, right? And so when you don't see that, what are you doing to make sure that health gets put back into the leaders, right?
I think the problem is they don't know what health looks like.
Sure.
That's good.
This is the standard,
Right.
And when there's no other standard to compare it to, it kind of is what it is. Yeah.
Can I make a distinction too?
Yeah.
I don't want to say that when a pastor has an affair, that's spiritual abuse. When a pastor has an affair with a congregation, member in his congregation, that's spiritual abuse.
Yeah.
That's different.
Oh, so you're saying
Absolutely.
if they have an affair with someone outside of the congregation,
If it's a secretary at work,
that's an affair.
That's an affair.
But if it's the Sunday school secretary,
Right.
that's spiritual.
Right.
Yeah.
Both secretaries.
Yes.
Right.
Oh my God, y'all! This is a 30. How in the world did we think we were gonna do this in 30 minutes? We
Man,
might need a
it's
part
so
2
much
for this
more.
one. Like seriously,
Yeah.
if you guys are open, I would love to do a part 2.
I'm here for it.
So
And
Yeah.
part 2,
Yes.
can we address mental health?
please,
Can we
yes,
address mental health in the
Absolutely.
church and how trauma is not dealt with?
yeah,
And we have all these broken people
Yeah.
in the church
Yeah.
body, right?
Yeah.
And you have broken leaders, broken people.
yeah,
It's a problem, right?
Yeah.
So we have to deal with the trauma, and we have to deal with the R. Kellys, and we have to deal with all of this stuff,
Like,
right?
oh, that's a whole. Yeah,
it's a
definitely
whole
is
nother
other
it's a
thing.
whole nother thing.
Ooh.
But in that, we cannot. Yeah, I like that chord.
I was literally
Yeah.
like, "Where's your guitar?"
Yeah. And my thought is
That's okay. So give us some final thoughts as we're wrapping up. We're definitely doing a part 2.
Yes.
I know that's a lot to unpack, because the other thing I want to also touch on too, once we get to part 2, look, as we're moving into part 2, obviously, no, not right now. But though, just I think especially for children, if there's any young people that are watching, and just knowing that, a conscious choice is different than your body's reaction. And I don't know if
Sure.
I'm saying that right.
Yes, you are.
But in that way, and so sometimes just because your body is reacting to a touch or a feeling, it doesn't mean that and you like it, it doesn't necessarily mean that you really do like it, or you really want it. And it can create this confusion. And oh my God, that's a whole other topic. But Joel, final thoughts.
Yeah, final thoughts is that we need to be able to address a healthy church.
Yes.
We need to be able to see
Yeah.
a healthy church.
Yes,
And so
yes.
the first thing that you have to recognize is when you're walking into a church, or you've been in a church for a long time, you have to ask yourself the question, is if this pastor leaves, will the church crumble?
Yeah.
If the answer is yes, then too much is dependent upon one person, and
That's
too
a
much
good way
can
to
go
look
wrong.
at it. Yeah.
Too much can go wrong. And we have to address trauma. We have to address mental health.
Yes.
This is an issue that's been swept under the rug forever. So you have adults who have children who are experiencing trauma, but they don't know how to deal with it because they ain't dealt with theirs. You know.
Oh
So
my God.
that is what I would love for us as a church body to address.
Absolutely. I think we definitely can begin there, JoLanda.
Yeah.
Yeah, as we're closing.
Healing in the body,
Yeah.
for sure, is needed. And in part 2, I think it's only fair to address the legalities of it. And the law is for the lawless.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
let's stop having family meetings and
Right.
church meetings and saying,
Yeah.
well,
Some chicken on the side.
Chris didn't really mean it. No, let's put Chris in jail.
Right.
Let's call
Right.
the authorities.
Real accountability,
and
yeah.
Law is for the lawless.
Wow.
And as a mandated reporter, if I hear and or suspect. But yeah, so just really addressing that. And the last thing is to the whole thing's been swept under the rug. There's so much under the rug now that we're tripping. Literally.
That's good.
We can't even walk straight,
Right.
so we got to deal with it. We got to bring healing, and we got to have these real conversations.
Yeah, no, I'm so here for it. So y'all, we'll definitely be back with the part 2 on Perps in the church, Perps in the pews. I definitely want to hit on those groupies in the pews too.
Yes.
What that looks like, is that just residue from people that have been abused? What is that? What is that? So gosh, it's so much to unpack with that. And again, we here at Believers After Dark are just trying to start the conversation. These are our own opinions, our own thoughts. And maybe you can take this back to your own congregations, to your own family, to your own community, and at least begin the hard conversations so that we can expose some things that needs to be exposed, and so that real healing can take place. Oh my God. Thank you guys so much for joining us. And until next week, I love you guys. Stay connected with us at savedandthecity@gmail.com, or visit us on our website at www.savedandthecityintl.com. All right. Thank you guys so much. And until next week, be encouraged. Bye.